Hello and welcome back to the Retire While You Work podcast. My name is Carson Odom, a financial advisor here at Adams Wealth Partners, joined by Miles Zuger and Jerry Ann AG. For today's episode, it is the top concerns that we're seeing from people when it comes to their financial plan and retirement plans. I think traditionally, if we were to ask somebody, what do you think people are worried about when it comes to their retirement plans and investments? In my mind, I would say that people are concerned about, oh, I need to make X percent, in the market, or my investments need to average X percent. But that's not even showing up in the top five. It's all on other factors beyond just your investment returns. Part of me thinks that it's just gotten to a point where investments are more of they just are what they are. You're going to make what you make, whatever the index does or whatever you're invested in. And there's just so many other things to really be concerned about that you more of have control. Yes, you have control over your investments and return, but the approach here is there are these top five things I think are really what's more driving anxiety and what's at the front of people's minds other than just investment results.
Yeah, and I do agree that some of these that we're going to talk about are a lot of the concerns that we do see from people. And I think they're very valid. And then a part of me, like in the back of my head, wonders, are these the things that are important? Because Carson, to your point, investments have just become kind of what they are. But is that because the market has done so well for the last 15 or 16 years? And so is it less of a concern because people have thought, we're going to get, 10-ish% on average, like we've been getting, and that's great. And that really leads us to our financial goals. And so people are less worried about that. And then, so I wonder if we saw some volatility, which at some point we may see that again, like we saw maybe in the early 2000s and the late 2000s, like 2007, 2008, when the market wasn't doing so well. I'm sure investments were a lot more at the forefront of people's minds, and these topics probably weren't. Yeah. So as important as I think these are, and I'm excited to talk about them, part of me does kind of wonder that.
And I think that investments are still at the forefront, but there's other things that pop up prior to that. One being like, getting into the first one kind of, but one being like, how much am I going to have for retirement being a big one. And it could be one reason I was thinking is retirement is a lot different today than it was years ago. Retirement is now 30, 40 years rather than a few years. So, maybe that's one reason why people are asking all of a sudden, or not all of a sudden, but in the past several years, am I going to have enough for retirement?
Well, funny you say that. The first risk is longevity risk or living too long. I think that hits the nail on the head perfectly, because let's think back to even Social Security specifically, back whenever it was created. For those that don't know, Social Security was a system where it was basically deathbed insurance, where if you happened to live longer than you were supposed to, you would have a year or two worth of income provided by the government, thus Social Security. Nowadays, it's the exact opposite of that, where we've got people living on Social Security for 20 to 30 years. And that's why it's essentially running out of steam and the coffers are running low, is because people are living on it for so long. And instead of your retirement assets retiring at 60 and your average life expectancy is low 70s lasting 10 years, no, we need to plan on retirement lasting 30, 40 years, especially if you think about retiring early. Someone retiring early in their late 40s, early 50s, they've got, 40, 50 years for this money to last. So that presents a lot bigger, quote unquote, challenge rather than just 8% in the market or something.
Yeah, not only Social Security, but also pensions have become much less prevalent also in the last 20 or 30 years, to where, somebody worked for the same company for their entire career, 20, 30, 40 years, somewhere in that range. And then instead of having a big 401k balance at the end of that, or hopefully a big 401k balance, they receive lifetime income based on, something like their 5 highest earning years. And so that provide a good steady stream of income for people into retirement. And now the focus is more so on, obviously Social Security as a part of the plan, but also the saving was put much more on the employer through 401k contributions, as well as employer matches, and the employer saying, hey, we'll just give you 3% instead of X amount when we get to retirement. And so those couple of things, just less guaranteed income sources, have made the focus much more on 401ks. Really the investment side of things, so 401ks, and then maybe saving outside of that in IRAs or taxable brokerage accounts, etc.
And another thing that can get people is the 401k not starting it early enough, or not fully understanding that if I do this, they're going to match this or whatever, and trying to build that up each year. And then all of a sudden they're 40 and their 401k is not looking too great. And they're trying to all of a sudden do a big catch up. So, I mean, companies don't spell it out for you. Like, this is everything. This is your retirement. They just say, hey, do you want to sign up for this?
If you are in your 20s, saving your 401k, it's a good idea.
Absolutely.
Get started early. Number 2, healthcare. I truly think for anyone that is pre-65 and retiring, this is the number one issue that we talk about is health insurance before Medicare. It is the biggest cost unknown, and you could be paying $2,000 or $3,000 a month for a couple just in premiums. And for a lot of people, you end up, or what we see, the decision to retire is delayed just for the sole point of having health insurance at 65. They might not retire at 62 because health insurance is going to be $4,000 a month and they can't afford it. Therefore, they wait until 65 in Medicare, and now they're paying $200 a month. So,
and then some people, like, if their spouse is younger or older or whatever, ideally, if one needs to retire, the other one would still have some sort of health insurance through their company. So you can avoid that at times if you kind of figure those years out. But yeah, that's a big worry, is that gap.
Yep. Not only the cost in ahead of retirement, but also just into retirement also. I mean, yes, Medicare can be great and covers a lot of things for a lot of people, but from time to time we do see, for whatever reason, where things aren't covered and it becomes very expensive. Even like in the financial plans we run in, normal inflation on everyday expenses at a certain rate. And just with what we've seen, we run healthcare at a rate close to 3 times, like the cost of healthcare type stuff, close to 3 times what we run for normal inflation. And so not only is it just, pre-retirement, it can be much more expensive filling that gap, but even into retirement, we're seeing costs escalate much more over time and from where they have been in the past.
Somebody's got to do something about that.
I don't know. It doesn't feel like there's any end in sight in the healthcare conversation, but we'll see. Time will tell. Number 3, Social Security uncertainty. This is warranted because it's published and known that the Social Security Trust Fund is going to run out in, I forget what the latest year is,
2033, 2034, somewhere.
Yeah, something like that. It's going to run out of money. What does that mean? So think all the Social Security tax that people pay goes into a pot, and that's what is used to fund Social Security income payments to people who are on Social Security. Right now, there's a discrepancy in that we don't have enough tax compared to the people that are claiming Social Security. So that's why it's going to run out of money. Like I talked about earlier, the issue is derived from, it was not built for people living off of it for 30 plus years, 20 plus years. So a few solutions have to happen. One, who knows what's going to happen? My gut says the government's going to wait until 2033. It finally runs out of money and they finally have to make a change. What are the changes?
Making that change is that you're not saying they're going to get rid of Social Security.
Not get rid of it. So what's going to happen then? 2033 comes around. I think this is not a short-term change that'll help it, but raise tax rates. That'll help it some. Either raise the tax rate or, it's capped right now. So if you make over like $186,000, you no longer owe Social Security income tax or Social Security tax. They could raise that cap even more so. It is indexed with inflation. Or they lower benefits or delay your full retirement age. It's currently 67. Maybe they delay that. I think that's a likely answer, not for those who are on the cusp of claiming Social Security, but I think for younger generations, those call it 40 and younger, I could see that likely, that our full retirement age is no longer 67. Maybe it's 75. I don't know, just quite a bit later. That way,
or maybe even
claiming as early.
Or maybe even when we can start it, a child being born today can start it when they turn 62, just like everybody else. But maybe for that person, they can't even start it till it's age 70 or 75 or something like that.
Yeah, that's what I think.
It's like, to Carson's point, there's lots of things that can be done. I mean, those are just a couple examples. I know we have a couple more, but it's like nobody wants to be the person to do it. A major overhaul to Social Security has not been done since Ronald Reagan was in office. So we're looking at, the 1980s, which is just a long time. And even since then, people are living a lot longer.
And I mean, they think, I mean, Social Security, cutting Social Security out or doing something big like that is literally, I mean, it's political suicide for somebody, honestly. I mean, everyone would be absolutely just furious.
Not only those who have been paid in the whole time, and maybe let's just say they're fortunate enough to not really need Social Security for the financial plan, but there's such a huge subset of people that they rely on it as their single highest form of monthly income. So, I mean, there's just a subset of people that you just straight up can't cut it for because they wouldn't be able to survive. And so that's
Right.
why, I mean,
Exactly.
so I don't know. I think we're all on the same page, very confident something will be done, but TBD on exactly what that is.
Or last comment on this, we can go to the next one. Maybe they end up, now the government cannot touch their normal debt balance sheet in order to pay for Social Security. Maybe the fund runs out and all of a sudden we just start adding to our debt the ability to fund Social Security. So then instead of us going up, I don't know what the pace is, $2 trillion a year in debt, now we go up $4 trillion a year in debt. It almost seems like a rounding error at this point, even though I know
Yeah, right,
$40 trillion is just an astronomical amount of money. Let's see. Number 4.
That's close to like your credit card balance, right? 40 trillion.
That's exactly right. Just around here. So we've done longevity risk, number 1. Number 2, the cost of healthcare. Number 3, Social Security and its uncertainty in the future. Number 4 is the rate environment and quote unquote safe income. So what people used to talk about from a portfolio was own your age in bonds. So let's think about that. If somebody is 70 years old and retired, they might only own 30% of their money in stocks and 70% of their money in bonds. Well, the rate environment has changed, and the rate environment then was much, much higher than it is now. Sure, if you could get it 10% from a bond fund, heck yeah, own your age in bonds. Put a bunch of your portfolio in fixed income. That's just not the case anymore. It's better than it was. I mean, heck, we were from 2009 up until really 2022, pretty much a zero interest rate environment. Bonds were piddly. They were hardly paying any sort of interest. So you didn't have a way to generate high income in a safe way, safe meaning from fixed income or money markets or CDs. Now it's a little bit different. I think it's coming back slightly. Interest rates, Fed funds rate is at 3.5%. Money markets are paying in the 3s. Bonds are paying 4, 5, 6, depending on how risky you go. But it's true. You got to basically add more risk to your portfolio in order to get a safe interest rate, safe income.
And I mean, we've been seeing people pull in. I mean, it used to be nobody ever talked about CDs for years and years because they weren't paying anything. And now it's like every time I turn around, somebody's getting some good CD with a good rate or a decent rate now. So there's all kinds of other little levers you can pull to get a minimum kind of rate.
And it is all a little subjective because, when rates were paying 10% back then, bonds paying 10%, well, mortgages are also like 12 to 15%. So it's not like you were just making 10% in fixed income and everything was, and you're getting cheap debt. I mean, debt was also expensive back then. So there's that part of it also. But I mean, yeah, I'd like, the way we plan is you should always have a handful of years in upcoming expenses set aside in cash and bonds and let that kind of dictate maybe how conservative you are and let stocks continue to be the growth engine of your portfolio rather than,
especially if you're living on it.
Especially if you're living on it. And then, rather than having everything in fixed income kind of killing your growth compared to inflation. Because I mean, even if you're getting 5% in fixed income, say inflation's at 3%, there's only a couple percent delta there. Whereas hopefully you're able to get twice that in stocks. So maybe you're getting 8 or 9% in stocks and inflation's at 3%. I mean, it's just a little bit better of a long-term outcome there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think really, and lastly, the last topic is just about the behavior area of personal finance and retirement plans, kind of behavioral drift. And I think really anxiety when it comes to retirement planning, I think there's so much on social media that I think it warrants everyone to self-reflect. I don't have what so-and-so has, or I don't have what social media tells me what I should have. So it just increases anxiety about, do I have enough, when reality is with so many of our clients, we walk through a retirement plan and we can go through every bit of analysis. Can we guarantee? No, we can't guarantee, but can we go through as in-depth of analysis as we possibly can? Yes, but sometimes that can be trumped by the emotional toll that social media just puts on us.
Yeah, it's in your face all day long.
It's in your face, yeah.
It's also the anxiety is much higher for people before they've run any kind of numbers or done any kind of plan, because when we sit down with them and do a plan, all of a sudden you can just tell they're like, okay, this is realistic. We can do this, and that helps some. But yeah, a lot of it is just because of the unknown.
I think the best part about whenever you're talking about anything behavioral is it's the one thing that somebody can control. Like, they can't control what the government's going to do, Social Security. They can't control where interest rates are at. They can't control a couple other things. But when it comes to behavioral stuff and how much you're spending, living within your means, that is the one thing that you can absolutely control. As difficult as it might be, if you're, the old phrase, keeping up with the Joneses, like, as difficult as it might be, it is the one thing you can control, and making sure that your lifestyle doesn't get out of whack once your income, once you're out of your earning years and now you're maybe pulling for your portfolio and just trying to stay on track and on budget and staying disciplined to that. If you can do that, most people have a pretty successful retirement.
Yeah. Control what you can control. And at the end of the day, with all of these 5 topics that we talked about, the best thing you can do is when you're having anxieties, you're having doubts, especially clients of ours, talk to somebody. Like, even this investing thing and creating a retirement plan, it's not easy. Emotions are very, they're always going to be present. Anxieties are always going to be there, but the best thing you can do is talk to somebody that can reassure you, talk you through these emotions and everything. And that's exactly what we're here for. So,
awesome.
So anyway, that was a good topic. So yeah, we're always here to help. Feel free to reach out to us if we ever can assist in any way, myself, Miles, or Jerry Ann. But thanks for joining us on another episode of the Retire While You Work podcast, and we'll see you next week. Any opinions are those of myself and not necessarily those of Raymond James. Expressions of opinion are as of this date and are subject to change without notice. The information contained in these podcasts do not purport to be a complete description of the securities market or developments referred to in this material. The information has been obtained from sources considered to be reliable, but we do not guarantee that the foregoing material is accurate or complete. Every investor situation is unique, and you should consider your investment goals, risk tolerance, and time horizon before making any investment. Prior to making an investment decision, please consult with your financial advisor about your individual situation. Any hypothetical examples are for illustration purposes only. Actual investor results will vary. Raymond James does not provide legal or tax services. Please discuss these matters with the appropriate professional.